It's Monday morning, so it's back to school for Greg Mahan. He runs into Bones outside the train station and has a pleasant good morning exchange with him, and then heads to the classroom to deposit his books. Afterwards, he runs into Bones again outside the cafeteria, and the good morning becomes a bit more proper. He also has pleasant conversations with Dream Goddess and Kelsey, and while he talks to the latter, Rendar and Raven just start going at it on the entranceway floor. And then Gusto steps in and pours cold water on the situation. And just in time, too, because the teacher arrives to lay down the law. Chris N apparently rubs Kelsey the wrong way, no pun intended, and gets a hot, throbbing handprint across the face for his trouble. Mindy's having a bit of a rough time this morning with 2 rejections right off the bat, but don't worry, her day gets better quick. Meanwhile, Gregory's off to a study session with Dream Goddess and friends. He seems to be getting along with Dream Goddess pretty well, so he asks her if she wants to work out a bit this morning. On his way back from the track, he runs into Doc Cupcake again, and oh boy, what has gotten into him today? Greg exchanges pleasantries with the teacher and then finds his friend Fade upstairs in the hallway and has a chat with him as well. They also decide to get a little calisthenic work in. Greg's on a roll, so he asks the usually recalcitrant Wasabi Pop-Tart if she wants to join in as well. Surprisingly, she does. Once again, coming back from the track, Greg is ambushed by Doc Cupcake. Fortunately for him this time, Doc just wants to meet him in the classroom after lunch. Lana and Gusto are having it out outside the counselor's office. Unfortunately for Gusto, Lana is top in the class when it comes to athletics. He doesn't stand a chance. Goober thinks Kelsey has a thing for Greg, and he's a little bit jealous about it. Meanwhile, out on the athletic field, now it's Zero and Ariel's turn to go at it in public. This sets off a bit of a chain reaction. While Ariel and Zero make with the love, Wasabi stealthily leads Film Fanatic toward the storage room at the back of the field. There's only one thing that goes on in that storage room. They come out looking flushed a few minutes later, but then Wasabi decides she isn't done and goes back for more. This continues until the teacher comes along and busts Ariel and Zero, but fails to notice Wasabi and Film Fanatic. As an intermission, Fade comes by with the latest on Kelsey's relationship status. Meanwhile, Wasabi and Film Fanatic's ongoing hanky-panky is getting Ariel and Zero amped up again. The two of them finally decide to maybe retire to more private environs, but the Academy's most prolific couple is still going strong for quite a while. At least until Mindy comes over and ruins the whole thing. At first, Dream Goddess leading Chris N to the baseball field also looks suspicious, but it turns out those kids are very well behaved. Mindy's a big old hypocrite though, because look who's headed into the storage room next. Ariel then decides that Greg's people watching needs to be punctuated with a fist to the solar plexus. Gregory is largely incapacitated until the teacher comes and finds him and decides he needs to bone up on his kendo now. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, Shigo is not a very good kendo instructor, and the session largely goes to waste. Shortly thereafter, Greg finds Fade has also been punched in the gut, and while giving him a hand up, witnesses Dream Goddess giving Wasabi a face full of fingers as well. Afterwards, Doc Cupcake finds Greg and requests he follow him into a bathroom stall. Oh my. After of the sex, it's back to the violence. Cheesy's up to his old tricks and belts Mindy one in the stomach. The teacher also seems to be pissed off about something. Greg seems to succeed in calming her down. However, she's not in the mood to go work out. Cheesy and Derona on the rooftop, not particularly doing anything interesting. In the hallway outside the classroom, however, Mindy and Goober have gotten into a major scrap. As the press of onlookers gets thicker and closer, it becomes hard to make out what's going on, but eventually Doc Cupcake arrives to break it up. And then, seemingly having dispensed with any pretense toward propriety, Mindy and Zero go at it in front of the cafeteria right on the sidewalk. When Mindy realizes they're being watched, however, she breaks it off. She gets about 3 whole steps away from the scene, however, before she's making out with Lana. So, Kelsey, how's your morning gone? Even though he's not the most popular guy around, Greg can still pull 6 or 8 people when he's picking up the tab for lunch. And 2 weeks in, it gives you a pretty good idea of what a character's social circle is. In Greg's case, that seems to be the teacher, Zero, Lana, Fade, Cheesy, Dream Goddess, Kelsey, and Doc Cupcake. Greg tries to follow up with a group exercise session and gets moderate turnout. Afterwards, Mahan and Bones have a little workout time, just the 2 of them, and no, that's not a euphemism. On his way to get changed for gym, Greg is treated to another scene of Mindy making out with Lana in the hallway. Day Skates is uncharacteristically depressed, but you might be too if Faye Rendar was your triple-timing boyfriend. Greg manages to cheer her up, but she still doesn't know him well enough to do things with him. Apparently Gregory looked to be a bit of a sad sack himself as well, as Cags comes along to cheer him up, and she does like him enough to go work out with him. On his way back from the track, Greg sees that apparently somebody has smacked around Mindy again, though it's anybody's guess who it was. Cags takes Rendar to lunch, and they engage in some light petting. Unfortunately, the teacher is also there, and she tries to nip that little problem in the bud. They maintain their decorum as long as the teacher continues to hang around, but once Miss Kigo leaves, they decide to head off also somewhere themselves, and poor Day can do little but watch the show, because she's too insecure to interrupt. Next thing you know, Cags is leading Rendar towards the girls' bathroom, and a few minutes later, Rendar makes a mad dash out of there for the boys' restroom. Guess he had to clean up a bit. Cags appears moments later as if nothing had happened, and doesn't even seem to notice Day nearby. Greg counsels Dream Goddess that maybe she'd be better off at this point making friends instead of slapping strangers. Goober wants to meet Greg somewhere next period. Oh wait, wasn't supposed to meet somebody somewhere this period? While he's waiting for Bones in the classroom, Cags shows up, and the 2 of them have a long, meaningful conversation. Cupcake does eventually show up, though they seem to talk about not much in particular once he does. Kelsey belts one across Fade's cheek, and Greg gives her the same advice that he gave Dream Goddess. Speaking of Dream Goddess, she lets Greg know that Goober might have something for him as well. Gym didn't go so well, so Greg decides to try and keep the ball rolling to make up some of the losses. Quite a number of people go with him. The teacher, Derona, Cheesy, Wasabi, Dream Goddess, Day, Kelsey, Adam Steinman, Zero, Gusto, who I don't think even likes him, and Cags. Afterwards, he invites everybody to the courtyard for snacks, and most of them take him up on it. Then it's off to the locker room for a shower and change of clothes for kendo practice.
Hey, kid!
I'm always amused by how nonchalant and innocent Bones' requests to follow him are, especially given with what they usually lead to.
Throw out your hands, stick out your tush, hands on your hips, give 'em a push. You'll be surprised you're doing the French mistake. Voila!
Alright, well that ought to keep him for a few days at least. Jeez. Oh my god.
Give me the playback and watch me fang it.
Throw out your hands, stick out your tush, hands on your hips, give 'em a push. You'll be surprised you're doing the French mistake. Voila!
Greg's turned Bones into a monster. His panicked flight leads him to Fade, who tells him to calm the hell down. The two of them head for the track for another run. Then here comes Bones again, this time with another request to meet next period. And that reminds Greg that he agreed to meet Goober somewhere this period. He waits, and waits, and waits, and eventually has to go and find him himself and bring him to the cafeteria to clear the flag for agreeing to meet him there. Gee, Goober, with social skills like that, I can't imagine why all your waifus are 2D. Greg goes for a little more exercise on his own, and apparently all his efforts are not going unnoticed. For the second time today, somebody tells Greg that Kelsey has a thing for him. So he maneuvers her into the infirmary where they can talk in private for a while. But the bell rings all too soon. The kendo team is a bit hampered by the fact that both Lana and Ariel pretty much hate Greg, though he gets along pretty well with the teacher. In fact, when he tries to extend practice, she's the only one who agrees to stay. He takes a long shot afterwards and rolls a natural 20 when asking her to go out to eat with him. After that, he heads back to the school locker room to get changed back into regular clothes and pick up his books. He is also paid a compliment by Adam Steinman. Day Skates drags Faye Rendar off to the arcade, and Raven Poe is escorted to dinner by Chris N. Fade and Goober also decide to hit the arcade. Ash and Ronan walk home together, and Zero takes Steinman out to eat. Greg decides he could use a little time in the arcade himself and gets Goober to go with him. And Kags leading Rendar to the arcade gives me a little bit of a sense of deja vu. Later, Greg finds them making out in the square. Cheesy and Dorona head for the train home together, as do Lana and Mindy. Lee Jun finds Gusto in the square and leads him off somewhere. The two of them stop just short of both the counselor's office and going all the way. Next, Greg is approached by Mindy, who wants him to go to the arcade with her. And by coincidence, Kelsey and Zero are also headed there. Mindy takes off immediately afterwards, and Gusto and Lee Jun head home. But when the other girls come out of the arcade, Greg takes them to karaoke. A short time later, Greg bumps into Dream Goddess and asks her to go get something to eat too. Turns out she's a really slow eater, and by the time they're done, he's got to sprint for the train. If only the kids could direct some of that enthusiasm towards sports training. The next exam's probably going to cover physical fitness. Greg Mahan manages to move up a paltry one slot from 22nd to 21st, while Dream Goddess vaults over him from 23rd to 18th. Cheesy and Bones trade places in 1st and 2nd, and Ash and Goober do the same, but the real surprise story here is Keltzy rocketing from 12th to 3rd. Meanwhile, Ronan tumbles from 5th to 12th, and Rendar continues to slide ever deeper into the abyss, but he's still got both his girlfriends. Greg's popularity problems seem to be rooted in him being extremely polarizing. Either people really like him or they really hate him, and the two nearly cancel each other out. Raven started laying the groundwork to rebuild her harem. She has yet to make good on her lewd promise to Doc Cupcake, and even Ronan's starting to think he made a terrible mistake breaking up with her. Despite his plummeting popularity and his unabashed public cheating, Faye Rendar is still managing to keep both Kags and Day around. Min Detective is now in official relationships both with Zero and Lana, and she's not the only one playing the field.